Hello, and welcome to the SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group Biweekly Sync. It is March 14th, 2019. Welcome to the call this week. Excited to have everybody on the call. Hopefully the daylight savings time confusion hasn't messed too much with folks' schedules. I want to get right in this week to the agenda. We'll start off, as always, with an engineering update on SharePoint Framework. We've got patterns and practices program updates for the different offerings, so the PnP JS library, the Office 365 CLI, the SPFx reusable controls, and the PnP Yeoman generator. And we've got two great demos coming. The first from Laura Kokarinen. Sorry, it took me a second there. And then Nanddeep Nachan is going to do his demo there on steps to access Google APIs from the SharePoint Framework. And then Laura is doing managing themes from an SPFx web part. So two great demos there. David thinks her demo title is wrong. Uh-oh. Well, who updated these demo titles? That person's going to be fired.
It's actually me. That is, you're 100% correct. Why did I? That's fair point, David, actually. So I missed that one. That's actually correct on the demo slide, but you can blame me, so that's fine. So.
Well, and I'm glad everybody was here for Vesa's last day.
Yes. That's how it happens.
But let's go ahead and get started. But first, I want to say Happy Pi Day to everybody. It is 3/14, so that's Pi Day. So I hope everybody gets to go out and enjoy some wonderful pie today out there in the world. But first, a statement on Microsoft Teams. We are aware that Teams exists, and we would love to use it. Unfortunately, there are some limitations in its current functionality, specifically around having presenters versus audience members and who can share their screen and who can take control and things like that. And we do very much want to switch, and we'll do so just as soon as the product supports the capabilities we need to make these calls run smoothly. So we are working on that. We are keeping an eye on that. It's not us necessarily being stubborn or not wanting to move. It's just simply a need to be able to better control the call and how the call flows than Teams really lets us do at this point in time. But so we will switch just as soon as we can. Do, of course, like to highlight the opportunities to participate in SPFx and the JavaScript Special Interest Group. Always encourage you to do demos, so we always have great demos on all these calls, and encourage you to mute yourself. Where's that person? Looks like Vesa got them. So you can do demos across anything SharePoint Framework related, so web parts, application customizers, provisioning, any of the stuff you might create with SharePoint Framework. Similarly, any of the @PnP stuff, so the PnP JS, the CLI, the reusable controls, or the Yeoman generator are all make great demos, and of course any combination of those things. So using those things with and in SharePoint Framework is always really cool to see. So if you're working on something awesome, and I know many of you are out there, I would encourage you to reach out to myself or Vesa on getting on one of these calls to do a demo. Very much encourage you to do that. Reach out. I would love to get you on a call. It might not be the immediately next call just due to scheduling, but we'll get you on just as soon as we can. So please just let us know. I would love to have you on the call. As well, you can contribute on GitHub, where you can report issues, submit pull requests, and you can also help with issues and questions others might have if you have a few minutes. All of that, I let you know, but never get back from you. I certainly apologize if we've missed a message. Please do reach back out. Try and hit us on Twitter or somewhere. And very sorry if we haven't gotten back to somebody. That's absolutely an oversight and not purposeful. So apologies there if you feel like we've missed getting back to you. So very, very sorry for that. And then as well, always appreciate feedback. So how are the calls going? How is our documentation? Where can we help? And then positive feedback is also okay. It's good every once in a while to get some positive feedback from the community as well. So stepping on to the SharePoint Framework updates, Vesa, if you want to take it away.
Yep, I'll take over the presentation, and I will share my screen pretty soon as well. So a few updates from the SharePoint engineering side whenever the loading actually stops. So there we go. Now I can actually.
I got it on my side.
Excellent, excellent. So a few things. Let me click that one. There we go. A few reminders: AKMS SP DevDocs documentation for SharePoint. SharePoint Framework 1.8 is coming out relatively soon. The docs will be updated when we release the 1.8 as an example. The videos, AKMS SP Dev videos, and then the issue list is super important for you to report any issues towards us as well if there's any dev-related customization issues. If it's an out-of-the-box issue, that's not the location to actually report those. Now, a few reminders. This one is a repeat from last time, so please remember that there is an existing SharePoint Framework developer training package which exists already from 6 modules. It will be further extended but with 3 additional modules relatively fast, and this is for you to take advantage any way you want. So you're able to reuse the material, you're able to re-deliver the material, you're able to use it for self-learning. There's videos, presentations, hands-on labs, demos available within this material. So please take advantage of these options. And if there's anything which we need to adjust on these things, please let us know. That's super, super important. If you don't like something, please let us know so we're able to address that. Now, a few additional things kind of from a SharePoint side, big things related on SharePoint extensibility and story. And this isn't really around the SharePoint framework, but it actually also is. And I noticed a small issue with the URL on the top right. But we released this provisioning service to public preview earlier this week, and we strongly encourage people to check it out. And this basically gives you a capability of provisioning SharePoint lookbook sites to any tenant as long as you're a tenant administrator. And then please remember to read the pre-requirements for the template. So basically, you can go to that service, you can sign in against your tenant, and you're able to provision good-looking sites, example content, which you can then reuse within any tenant in the world. Now, this is in public preview, so there are small hiccups here and there which we are still addressing, and we keep on evolving this as we move along on this journey. Few things: if you have tested this and you're running into issues or you've been getting exceptions, first of all, please report them to us. The second, the typical exceptions what we're seeing all the time what people are missing is that they don't read the pre-requirements. Some of the templates do contain SharePoint Framework extensibility or extensions and Webparts, and the app catalog has to exist on your site. And please do remember to mute yourself when joining on the call. Now, so you need to have an app catalog in the site for some of the templates, not for all of the templates. So if you're running into an exception, try another template which doesn't, for example, have customizations. All of the templates actually have detailed list to what they contain, and you're able to actually have a look on what's available in them. Now, and what else? If you are using this for deployment of the SharePoint Starter Kit, which is an open source reference solution, the Starter Kit itself can be installed to any tenant as well using this solution. But it requires that you are a term store administrator. That is a pre-requirement for that template to actually succeed. So please have a look on the documentation, have a look on the notes and guidance around the service as well. But please give us also feedback. We will add additional solutions and samples in this service as well, so you can easily provision cool content on the existing tenants. Good. Now, so a quick answer from Jonas's question: please report the errors. If you're getting errors, please do report those. The only way we can fix the errors is by us knowing that something goes wrong. So we're able to then get the people on top of it. Now, from the SharePoint Framework perspective, the growth continues. We saw a massive jump on January and then slightly slowing down the growth, but now we're again seeing a next jump, which means that the additional set of customers are again taking modern portals and modern SharePoint Framework customizations into use. So the growth is just unheard of. You can see the yellow marker on between the both lines, which are actually showing the growth curve in a direct line, which is it's pretty insane how fast the usage is currently growing. Now, a few things related on SharePoint Framework. So SharePoint Framework 1.8 is going to go out really soon. It's going to be released in March 2019. Right now is 14th of March, so you can kind of a guess. We could do betting on which day we're actually releasing that. And just a word of an example, we do not release anything on Friday because you should never ship anything on Friday. So just letting everybody know that. So 1.8 is coming out relatively soon. The number one big thing there is the general availability of creating Microsoft Teams tabs using SharePoint Framework. That goes to GA right now. We'll also GA the single part app pages and isolated web parts. So isolated web parts is there for creating the limiting the permission and access tokens access between the web parts. So we're automatically creating applications to your Azure AD if you're using this option. And the single part app pages is the full page rendering of a web part. Really cool capability as well. We're also going to support TypeScript 3.x. We do get a lot of questions related on why don't you support the latest possible thing? Why don't you upgrade on the things? Why don't you upgrade the on-premises? And I'm going to spend two seconds quickly on explaining this. So first of all, for SharePoint Online, we build all of our own customizations using SharePoint Framework as well. So whenever we upgrade the first-party experiences, we will get you the same version. We cannot, however, give you a newer version of the TypeScript or React than what we're using in the first party, because that's just not how it works. Plus the fact that we have quite a few first party web parts and UIs and experiences which we need to test. So this actually makes the upgrading of to the latest versions slightly more complicated than externally people might actually think, because we need to upgrade things at the same time. Now, there was also a feedback in some of the GitHub issues related on why don't you upgrade the on-premises version of the supported SPFx version in on-prem? And the answer for that one is that we actually can't, not because we wouldn't want to. We would love to use the latest and greatest and the version which was released yesterday, but that's just not reality. The only way we can update the version is that we update the server-side dependency as well of the TypeScript or React than what we're using in the first party, because that's just not how it works. Plus the fact that we have quite a few first-party web parts and UIs and experiences which we need to test. So this actually makes the upgrading of to the latest versions slightly more complicated than externally people might actually think, because we need to upgrade things at the same time. Now, there was also a feedback in some of the GitHub issues related on why don't you upgrade the on-premises version of the supported SPFx version in on-prem? And the answer for that one is that we actually can't, not because we wouldn't want to. We would love to use the latest and greatest and the version which was released yesterday, but that's just not reality. The only way we can update the version is that we update the server-side dependency as well, SharePoint Online. John, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. So the only way we can update the version is to update also the server side. And in SharePoint Online, we control the server side, and that's why we can actually update SharePoint Online relatively fast. For on-prem, we do not have any permissions to upgrade your servers. And that means that the only way we can actually upgrade the dependencies are as part of the service packs or major versions. So even though we would love to give you SharePoint Framework 1.8 in SharePoint 2016, it's just not easily doable. The logistics and everything else are insanely difficult, and I'll probably explain this in a future blog post at some point, because it's good that people understand that we would love to do that, but it's just the implications are hard. Now, coming back on the list of things, so the support for TypeScript 2.7 and 3.x, you can actually choose which one you use, which is a cool thing. Provided hosted solutions in SharePoint, so Teams applications inside of the SharePoint, basically the classic Teams tabs. So if you implemented a SaaS team tab implementation, those will work in SharePoint, but it's still in preview. There are certain things which we found out relatively late, so we need to fix those. Most likely it will go GA before 1.9, and we'll communicate all of this when that happens. The library components for SharePoint Framework solutions is going to go to preview as part of 1.8, which we're going to then assume that it's going to go GA in 1.9, which will probably happen roughly on build SPC time frame, which is a relatively good way of putting that. So typically we'll release stuff during the big conferences. So you'll see the 1.9 coming at that point, 1.8 coming relatively fast. Good. Store and App Store story for SharePoint Framework still in progress, but we are actively working on that one. But what I wanted to do with this one is quickly show you the library component, because this is insanely cool stuff. So let me actually get here. Let me share my screen and the Parker Porcupine situation is well, we'll get more details on Parker as fast as possible as well, whenever the time is right. Now, so somebody needs to tell me. Thanks, Hugo. Somebody needs to tell me when the screen sharing is actually working. So just confirming that you can see that. Good. Sean got it. David got it. Excellent. So we're good to go. So I'm running a 1.8 release candidate second version, so to say. This is BR1. It's just our internal code names. And so it's basically a release candidate 2, because BR0 is the first one, and then we always find something, and then we follow up on things. But what I've done here, this is the Webpart solution. So let me change to the library solution, or actually let me show this one in here. So if I create quickly a library component folder, and I can go to the library folder, and I can do yo Microsoft SharePoint, and if I do plus beta, we get the typical set of questions, obviously. Let me slightly bump up the font so you can more easily see what I'm actually doing here. And Yeoman, there we go. So this is going to be called library. That's fine. SharePoint only. This is current folder. And the next question is, well, obviously the deployment mechanisms, no API permissions, but voila. What is the type of client-side component which you can create? And we have a new fellow available. So you're able to basically then execute or when you execute the Yeoman generator in the plus beta mode, you'll get the library component type available in here. And then you can create the library component type, and I'll show you how the library component type actually looks like, if I can find the right, there we go. So this one is a library component type, super simple library component. It's a component type of library, and let me again bump up the font slightly so you can actually see what I'm doing here. So component type is library, and a few manifest things for that one, nothing major, but I can actually concentrate on implementing reusable components or reusable code. In this case, this is just a library, test library. It has a name property, which will then return this information is coming from a custom library at a certain time. So really simple thing, just to verify that things are actually working. Now, after I implemented the library, or when I have the baseline done, you'll need to do npm link. And that means that you're able to then link this library and you're able locally, and you're able to use the library in Webpart. So, but in this case, I've actually already done that. The only thing what I actually want to do quickly is, let me get in here. So let's see, what do we actually have? Library. Test no beta. So let me do call bundle. Does the ship? And I'll do a quickly package solution as well, and we'll get this one deployed basically to the app catalog. The demo doesn't take too long, but I wanted to actually go through the steps, what's actually happening here. So package into the library solution, everything is available. Let me do also the package solution. And yes, sooner or later we will actually have a one command which will do both of these, but it's slightly awkward that you always need to do this both. Now that's actually now getting executed, so that's going to be updated in a second, and let's get that one deployed. There we go, 1619. So now if I go to my tenant app catalog, let's go to the solution. There's my library test SPFx file. So just getting that one on the app catalog available for the web parts to actually reference and take advantage. Now, Okay, we want that to be available across all of the sites because the web parts might be anywhere in a tenant. So again, slightly debatable. Technically, you can do a site collection app catalog for library as well. Now, what about the web part? So we're consuming that library in the web part sites, and this one was the library part. So let me actually jump to a web part which is actually consuming that library. So in this library.
Yeah, I think Brad has.
And Apache, can you mute yourself? Thank you. Thank you. Now, so what's going to happen next is that we need to do Npm Link, and all of this is going to be documented in this solution, in the solution folder. And after that, we are just able to reference the library in our code. So basically what we need to do, we don't need to update any configs, we don't need to update anything more than say import as my awesome library, and the npm linking, the name which we use for npm linking. And in this case, I'm just creating an instance of that library. Again, how do you implement the library? What does the library do? That's up to you. That's just a simple usage scenario. It's my instance, and I'm actually adding that name property inside of this rendering of the HTML. Now, what's really cool about this one, the only thing what we need to do in this web part is the npm linking for development time, and then we need to make sure that we have a dependency included in here. So let me actually do that for the library itself. So in this case, our library is library test beta no beta 001. And how did I know that? If I go here to the package JSON, I can actually see that my library name is test beta no beta 001. So basically, in our dependencies of the web part, I'm saying, hey, so we have a dependency on this basic setup and my custom setup, which is this one in here. Cool. And then we're basically good to go. So let me get into Commander, get in here, web part, library test, do call bundle -- ship. Russell, how does it know where to load the library from where it's deployed? It's magic. So basically, what happens in runtime is that the web part is saying, hey, so I have a dependency on this library. SharePoint, can you help me? And SharePoint says, oh, yeah, I got that. This is for you. And voila, that's the only thing what you need to do. So it's super automatic. You don't need to do any associations or anything. And let's do the package solution. This is really, really cool stuff. And at the time when we're waiting this to actually do this, think about all of the generic code which you can put on a library. And then you're able to use the same library code dynamically runtime in your web parts across the whole tenant in an efficient way. And you're able to version that centralized library completely independently. So you're able to introduce stuff, change the stuff, and that will completely do modifications on other sides. What if I were doing a library package versus a custom npm package? Well, basically, it's just a matter of a reference. To be fair, if you do a custom npm package, then you need to host that in somewhere. You need to reference that dynamically. You need to host that in somewhere else than actually the app catalog. Technically, you can actually make that happen as well. But the way we get the library now exposed is super, super easy. So let me actually get in here, and let me get to the VP library test, and let me get to the SharePoint and solutions folder. And there we go, library test is available over there. So let me get my app catalog available. Here we go, voila. Getting everything installed. There we go, and it's a normal web part solution. I will click checkbox and that one. Bum. And our deployment should be completed. So now if I go to communication sites, refresh, and let's create a new page, add a page, and let's call this demo. In here we should have something related on library, and VP library test, and there is our web part, which is actually dynamically getting referenced, referencing that library implementation inside of the code. The only thing, like I said, was the runtime dependency. And now if I do any changes on the library, I'll just drag and drop the SPPKG file to the app catalog, and poof, updates are immediately available. I don't need to recompile. I don't need to do any changes on the Webpart side to be able to version the functionality, which is absolutely one of the key advantages of the library component comparing NPM packages, because, well, theoretically you can dynamically render that as well, but that's pretty impressive. So now I can do modifications on the underlying packages without impacting the Webpart if needed. Now, that was a really good, really fast demo. Well, not super fast demo, but let's get back on the slides. We do have 2 awesome community demos coming up as well. But we wanted to actually show some new stuff, which is going to be released to preview as part of the 1.8 release. So it's going to be in preview, not for GA in 1.8. The GA for library component is planned to be in the 1.9 version. And I'll have a look on if I missed any questions while I was doing a demo. Patrick?
Taking over as presenter. All right, quick updates through the PnP stuff so we can get to the remaining demos. PnP JS, we did get the 1.3.0 release out on March 8th. That was last Friday. So we did bump the minor version to 1.3 from 1.2. That reflected the full rewrite of the client-side page code. So I did want to say thank you very much to everybody that helped test that very quickly that week. It was kind of a crazy week, but got that done, and that seems to be mostly working for folks. Of course, if you do see issues, please report them in the issues list, and we'll do our best to take a look and get those resolved. More graph coverage also was included in that release. So we've got a pretty good graph footprint at this point in terms of coverage. So excited to see that, and always excited to continue for that to continue expanding. So some great work there, and a lot of other great smaller updates made it in. Stuff from the issues list that have been there for a little bit. We got those in. So check out the changelog, check out the new release when you get a chance, and of course appreciate all your feedback on that. We are doing lots of work behind the scenes on 2.0. We do have the roadmap labels I've mentioned before in the issues list, so if you would like to comment on those or submit an issue/suggestion for 2.0, something you'd like to see changed, very happy to hear that feedback. Can't, of course, promise we'll do it, but would love to hear your thoughts, and that will definitely shape what we're doing. So I can tell you quite honestly that the changes we're making have been very much shaped by the feedback over the last few years, in fact. So sometimes you have to do a major release to do certain changes, and this is a good chance to do that. And we are targeting a release of a beta for 2.0 for the Collab Summit timeframe, and that will be that's end of May, I believe. So around that timeframe, we'll get a beta out on that, and at that point, we'll have demos and discussions on this call around the 2.0 stuff. And then I want to say thank you again to everybody that helped contribute, everybody that helped test the new client-side page stuff, and everybody that helps gives us feedback and issues. Do very much appreciate that. pnp.github.io/pnpjs for all the documentation. You can follow the hashtag PnPJS on Twitter, and you can follow me at MediocreBowler on Twitter, and that is a great way to keep up to date with what's going on with PnPJS and the PnP program as a whole. I did want to make a quick note because we're seeing an uptick in a certain type of comment in the issues list. And I just want to remind folks, PnPJS is a project that I and everybody else, so not just me, is working on in our free time. So that's time away from family, health, exercising, hobbies, etc. So please be respectful of that time. The alternative is that nobody supports it, right? And burnout is real on open source projects. If you look around the open source world, you see a lot of people walking away from their projects due to burnout. And that's not what I'm saying is about to happen here, but I am saying do be respectful of folks' time. So I just highlighted one comment on a recent issue, and the comment was basically, can you guys, figure out if you're going to do something on this or not? Let me know before I waste my time. And the idea that your time is more valuable than my time is just not one that's going to fly. So keep that in mind. Be respectful. We all have a lot of stuff going on in our lives. Not just me. This isn't just about me. It's about all of us. So we're doing our best to support this. I was up a lot of late nights a couple weeks or last week for the client-side pages stuff. So this isn't a question of caring. This isn't a question of really wanting to do things very well. It's just a matter of time and trying to balance these things out in our lives. So please understand we're not ignoring your issue. It's not that we don't care about your issue. It's that we have a lot of competing priorities, and we're doing our best to answer everybody's questions and do those things. And a great way to help with this kind of thing is if you have a few times, or a few minutes to help, try and help out somebody else's question, right? You might have an issue that you're not sure on, but maybe you might have an answer to somebody else's. So just want to, put that reminder out there before the situation does get to a point where it's unsustainable. So just want to kind of put this out there, just trying to keep things balanced for all of us in the community. And this isn't just, I said PnP JS, but this is across all the PnP stuff. So just something to keep in mind, when you're demanding others spend their time on your issues. So please try and be a little respectful of everybody's time as we look at this stuff. Moving on to happier and fun things, the Office 365 CLI. The new beta 1.15 is out with commands for managing Teams apps and settings, removing list and site columns, and undeclaring records, which is an oft-asked-for thing, and it's a really cool feature, undeclaring records. I've been on projects where that's been a real headache, and so nice to see that functionality make it into the CLI. In progress, of course, more commands for Teams, Flow, Power Apps, and SharePoint. And then as well, you can always install the latest beta using the npm install-g, and then the @PnP Office 365-CLI @next will get you the latest beta. More information, as always, at aka.ms Office 365 CLI. That's for the documentation. You can follow the hashtag Office 365 CLI on Twitter. And as well, there's a Gitter channel, gitter.im/Office 365-CLI. So do check that stuff out. And the CLI is, again, a really valuable tool to have in your toolbox, for doing your SharePoint projects and managing your SharePoint clients. So for sure, check that stuff out. SPFx Reusable Components. No big updates this week, but do want to remind folks these exist and are really super helpful inside your SPFx projects to jumpstart your development. So we have two libraries. The property controls are used primarily in the edit pane. So when you edit your web part, these are controls that allow you to easily pick things like color, taxonomy terms, set titles, and things like that. And then there's a whole other library of content controls. So those content controls are really fantastic for helping you in the body of your web parts, laying things out. And these are things like graphs and charts and maps and things like that in the body of your web parts, as well. People picker control, lots of great controls in these, save you a lot of time. They are styled with the Office UI fabrics that are going to give you that nice Office or that nice out-of-the-box look in SharePoint. So they're nice and polished. And again, really jumpstart your development in terms of SPFX web parts and application customizers. So definitely check those out. Two links down there at the bottom: sharepoint.github.io, sp-dev-fx-property-controls. And the second one, sp-dev-fx-controls-react. Those are the property controls and body controls, content controls, respectively. So definitely check those out. That's certainly a really fast way to jumpstart your SharePoint framework development. And then wanted as well to update folks on the Yeoman generator. If you haven't checked this out, lots of great work has been going into this recently. This is a community-supported SPFx Yeoman generator that is built on top of the standard SharePoint Framework generator. So at the end of running this, you do get a normal SharePoint Framework project with all the same underlying files, capabilities, references, etc. But it does have some extra stuff in it, so you can configure an expanded set of frameworks. You've got some additional helpful gulp commands such as dist, which rolls up the ability to create those packages without having to run the multiple commands you saw in Vesa's demo earlier. So definitely check out the generator. It's a great way, again, to help jumpstart your SharePoint framework development, especially if you want to use some of the different frameworks or have some of the different pre-provisioned capabilities into your project. Really helpful thing. So check that out. Install the latest from npm install-g at pnp/generator-spfx. And then, of course, want to remind folks, all of these projects, so the PnP JS, the controls, and the generator, and the CLI, all are accepting of your contributions and feedback. So if you have ideas for making any of these things better, please reach out. Let us know in the issues list is honestly the best place, because that way we can track it. But very cool capabilities across all of these things. And we are now to the demos. We see Laura with the right description here. So Laura, if you are ready to take it over, I will hand it over to you to discuss what you're actually going to discuss, which is SharePoint Framework built Microsoft Teams tab using Graph.
Sure thing. Let me share my screen. Okay, cool.
And got it.
Some people can see it. Cool. So, yeah, my name is Laura, and today I'm presenting to you this public Teams. I'm not a member of Webpart, which I contributed to the SPFx samples a little while ago. And I originally implemented this as a conference demo for ESPC 2018. And I got this idea from a colleague of mine. And basically the situation went that she was having a conversation on a Teams channel about a certain topic, and then another person comes in and says, you know, we've been talking about the same thing in another team, so how about you come over there and let's continue the chat over there? And she was like, yeah, sure, but how I wasn't aware of this team before this moment. Like, is there some place where I could see all the public teams that are in our tenant? Because if we go to Teams and click this Join or Create Team, what we get here are just recommendations. This doesn't list all the teams in the tenant. Though, of course, you can go and, for example, start searching for a team and then it returns something to you. But out of the box, there is no place where you could see a list of all public teams in your tenant. So, for example, if you would be interested in marketing, you would know that there's a team where you can join and discuss about that kind of topic. But that Webpart allows you to do that. So, for example, if I want to join this team with cats because I like cats, that adds me to that team. Or at least it should. I'm getting a demo effect. Yeah, it added me. And then if we refresh this page, we naturally don't get the team here anymore because we are a member of that. And this Webpart uses Graph for fetching the teams and also for adding the person into the team. And let's take a look at the code. In the end, this is a very, very simple Webpart. There's like 132 lines of code. It's very simple. Here in the beginning, we reference the MS Graph client for calling Graph, and I've implemented some helper methods down here for both get and post requests, and they use this call graph method that returns a response, and the requests are done to Graph synchronously because we need the response before we can do stuff with it. And for the Webpart, we need to assign permissions to Graph, so these are the 3 permissions that are needed. So when you deploy this Webpart to the App Catalog, you also need to remember to go to the preview version of the Admin Center and go to this API management page to accept the Microsoft Graph permissions before the Webpart actually does anything. But let's take a look at this logic. So in this render method, we first, of course, need to get the teams the user is not a member of before we can render the list. And that happens in this function. And we can't get that kind of list directly from Graph. We need to first get the teams that the user is a member of, and then all the teams, and then make a difference between these 2 arrays. And we also need to filter teams based on the public the visibility property, because Graph doesn't allow you to do that directly. I'll come back to these two rows in a bit. And when we have these missing team IDs, or the IDs of the teams that the user is not yet a member of, we create this JSON object that contains the team objects of those teams, because we might want to use all the values or the properties of those teams as well, in addition to the ID, for example, the display name, so we can display it in the web part. And if you would like to display some other information, then you could do that too. And we return the value token from that JSON object, and then render the basic HTML for the web part, and after that, the individual team rows go into this container element, and that happens in this render teams function. So we get the container element, and then we also get the user ID from Graph for the currently logged in user, because naturally we need that if we want to add the user to the teams. And for each of the teams that we deduce that the user doesn't belong to yet, we create a row for each of them, then add a button to the beginning of the row, and we save the team ID as the button ID. You could just pass this as a parameter later on as well, but I figured might as well store it here because we need to use the button element later on too. And then change the button text, and here we add this add member event handler to the on-click listener, and at the button we just add a span element that contains the team display name. And in this event handler, we get the source, which is the button that the user clicks, and then the user ID. And we disable the button so the user can't click several times because the users like to click. And then we change the inner text to join, so they feel like, yes, I did something useful by clicking this button. And then we build the body for the Graph request that is basically a reference to the user object, and then make a post. And we get the team ID from the button ID because it's the same, because we added this in here. And that's basically everything that this web part does. And I promised to come back to these 2 lines of code. So yeah, like I earlier mentioned, unfortunately, Graph doesn't allow us to filter groups based on visibility. So you can't add this OData filter visibility equals public here and only receive public teams. What this line actually does, it returns all teams. And when I say all teams, I mean all teams, including private teams that the user is not a member of. So you might want to discuss, if you plan on using this in a customer environment, might want to discuss with them, is it okay? Like, are your users very tech savvy? Do they have Fiddler? Because if they have Fiddler up and running and they refresh the page, they can see the request going on, and the response contains display names for all the private teams in the tenant. So if you have some top secret projects and your teams have been named according to the projects, it could be an issue. And of course, because it returns so many teams, tenants can potentially have a lot of teams. This can take a little while, and also, of course, rendering teams can take a while if a user has a lot of teams. So potentially this web part can be quite slow. So if you have time and want to improve and fix these issues in one way or another, feel free. It's an open source project. But yeah, that's basically it. So there's one more thing I could show you, because this web part is actually built on the SPFx 1.7.0 plus beta version, so it means that it's Teams tab compatible. So, you know, when you generate this SPFx web part project, you get this Teams folder that contains the manifest file and the logo files, and then you put it together into a zip file. And after that, you can install it to your Tenants App Catalog in here by uploading a custom app. And after that, you can pin it as a tab, and then it gets rendered in here. So this can be quite useful if you have a team, like or company, where all the members or all the employees in your organization belong to. then they don't have to go to a separate SharePoint site to join the teams. They can see it immediately right here, which is quite nice, in my opinion. Any questions? I can get the link to you in a bit and post it in the chat. But this is
Awesome
in
work.
the SPFx samples. I think those are JS public content teams. Okay, I'm done. Thanks.
Great work, Laura. Thank you very much. And I believe Nanddeep is the next demo up. If you just want to go ahead and take over the presentation.
Hey, hi Patrick. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
All right, and can you see my desktop too?
And now I got it. Take it away, Nanddeep.
All right, thank you. So, hello all, good morning or good evening. Firstly, thank you for giving this opportunity to present my work in SharePoint Framework. So today the sample I'm going to demonstrate is about consuming the Google APIs in SharePoint Framework client-side web part. So something about me for those who don't know me. Myself, Nanddeep Nachan, and I'm from Pune, India, and I have been working with SharePoint, Office 365, and Microsoft Azure for years. These are some social handles to get connected with me. So coming to this sample, there are quite a few interesting APIs available in the Google side. And the purpose of this sample is to explain the process of accessing them from SPFx. So this sample is part of a larger concept around enterprise scenario of how Google APIs can be used in SharePoint Framework. So this particular sample is developed specifically to consume Google Fit API and display the fitness data in SPFx web part. So the sample is developed using React.js and SPFx drop version 1.7.1. So the sample can be accessed from this particular URL, which is here. It describes all about how to install, configure, and use the sample. So firstly, that we will have to generate this OAuth 2.0 tokens and all those things. We will go over it in a demo, but this page explains entire information about how to get it installed, configured, and start using the sample. All right. So then, as a summary, there are a number of fitness bands and apps available in the market and app stores. So the reason for going with the Google Fit is that it's free. It's a mobile app, and once the app is downloaded to mobile, it keeps track of all your activities. And the second thing is it does not need any additional band to be tied up to the wrist. And the third important point was we wanted to explore how we can integrate the Google RESTful APIs with SPFx. So as a developer, I always wanted to go one step further and start programming against the fitness data so that we can use it in any application or mold it further. So Google REST API is just help us doing that, and it enables to store and access the user data in the fitness store. So coming back to how we can get started with this Google REST APIs. So the first and foremost thing is that we should have a Google account to start using this. And the second thing is that we should generate OAuth 2.0 client ID and client secret. So for that, we can use this console.developers.google.com. And from here, we can generate a client ID and client secret. So let me just refresh this. All right, so from here we can create a new project and start using it. But just to save the time, I already have one project created. I will start using this. So firstly, that we'll have to set up the credentials. So I already have set it up, but this page will help us to set up the credentials, which API we want to use, maybe fitness API or other APIs. And from where these APIs will be called from. So it could be from JavaScript enabled web browsers or from Android or iOS or anything. In our case, we are using a web browser because we are calling this from an SPFx web part. And then what kind of data we want to access, is it a user data or application data? So since we want to get the information about the user activities, we are going ahead with user data. So I already have created the credentials. Maybe let's have a look at it. So this is how the credentials look like. We have a client ID, client secret to access these APIs. And since it is kind of an interaction of Google APIs from SPFx, so for that reason, it is a cross-domain call. So to avoid any kind of CORS, we need to use or we need to authorize the JavaScript origins. So for that reason, you can see that I have added my SharePoint.com site here as a authorized JavaScript origin. And for example, if you want to test it on a SharePoint local workbench, you can also add this localhost colon 4321 as the authorized JavaScript origin. So this will help us to build a secure connection between Google APIs, Google REST APIs, and SPFx. So yeah, so that's about this. And then the next thing is that before we start using it in SPFx, we again have one playground offered by Google, wherein we can start using or start testing this API. So once we have generated this client ID and client secret, we can test the Google APIs using Google Developer Playground. So here is the playground. Let me refresh this. So this will just help us to test our REST APIs or the Google REST APIs. So this OAuth 2.0 playground for Google Developers Platform is available from here, and this playground will help the developers to explore various Google APIs and understand their requests and responses and query the APIs to fetch the data. So for example, you can see here that we can query the AD Exchange, we can even query the AdSense, and for example, the more interesting part will be email part. So let me scroll a bit down for email. Yeah, so from here we can also start using the APIs for Gmail. So we can read, compose, and send the emails using these APIs. So there are numerous helpful Google APIs available here, which can be consumed. So even there are some Google Analytics API, this Picasa Web Album APIs, and all other things. So for this demo, we are going to explore more about these fitness APIs. So for this, we should explore this fitness V1. And once you hover on each of the activities, so these all are called as an activity inside this RESTful APIs. So it will show you some help text about what this API can help us. So this one is for viewing the activity information about the Google Fit. And then here are some other for maybe reading the glucose level, reading the temperature, and all other things. So just for demo purpose, maybe let's select all, so that we want to query all of these REST APIs. So let me select those very quickly. So we have selected almost all of the APIs which are available from Fitness V1. Then we will click this Authorize APIs so that we will get authorized to use this API. So this will ask us for the user account. I'm selecting my account here. All right. So then it will ask us for the confirmation that we are going to use these many APIs from here. So once you click allow, then you will be able to access all those APIs. So then Google gives this authorization code, which is kind of an unique authorization code, which we can help to exchange the tokens between the calls. So for that, we can just click this exchange authorization code for tokens. And then we get the refresh token and access token. And from here, we will be able to make or test our REST APIs. So for that, I already have some list of APIs available. So to get all the APIs which are available to us, we can use this HTTP GET method, and with this request URI, we will send this request. And now that we are getting all the operations which are available to us, and from here we can probably search for estimated steps. Right, so all these estimated steps will give us the information about how many steps we have walked so far. And then there are also other things like calories and all those things which can be tracked from here. So then, so that means in a response, all the available data sources for that particular user will be listed along with the data type. And then estimated steps is one of the example which gives us the number of steps. So just to explore more about this estimated steps, we will try to get the number of steps which kind of I executed today. So for that we will use this post HTTP method, and with this request URI, which is kind of getting the or querying the fitness API for me, for this currently logged in user, and it is trying to get the aggregate dataset. And for that we have to pass in some information like this one. I will explain what this is. So this is from here we are saying that we just want to know the number of estimated steps which have been executed by the user and during which time duration. So this is just one sample start time and end time during which we want to calculate the number of steps. So for example, if you want to get the current time, then probably you can do something like this. All right, so you can just type new date dot get time, and this will give you the numeric representation of what is the time now, and you can probably have it in the start time, and then you can go to the 12 AM of this day to get the end time. So once we have this, we can send it as a request body, and then just click send the request, and here we get the entire response, like how many number of steps that I have walked today. So in this we can just search for int val, so which is the data type for this particular estimated steps. So for example, now you can see that there are 5 intervals in which I walked today. So for example, if we sum up all those int vals, so it will give us the list of all steps which is run by or which is executed by that user. So similarly, we can get the number of calories burned and all those things. So just for that, for the implementation of this particular sample, I have used npm package, which is React Google Authorize. So this particular npm package helps to get authorized to Google, and then from there we can execute the REST APIs against the Google. So this is the client ID which is coming from here, which we can add to this particular component, and then this one will be shown up as a button, and we can have one code on the success of this authorization and on failure of this authorization. So maybe let's get to the demo of this. So this is how it looks. So this is the button which is executed by that React component, which helps us to authorize against the Google APIs. So if I edit this web part, so in this Webpart properties, I have added the client ID field, which we have got from OAuth 2.0. And then let me close this, discard the change. All right, so once we have it, I will just click login with Google. I already have logged in, so it will not ask me for the login prompt, but here we get the data, like number of hours or number of minutes I spent today with any of the activity, the distance what I have traveled, the calories which I have burned, and the number of steps I have calculated. So this is not very much encouraging data for everyone, but yeah, at least from here we are able to make a call to Google REST API and get the data. So then how it is implemented. So let me go to the Visual Studio Code to explain the entire code. So we will start with this render method, and inside this we have this component called as Google Authorize. So this component will help us to authorize to the Google so that we can call the REST APIs. And to this we are passing on these 2 scopes. So that means we want to read the user activities, and then we want to read how many kilometers or how many meters he has walked. So we want to get the location data. So to the scope we can define these 2 activities, and then we can pass in the client data which we are kind of getting from the Webpart property. And then on the success and failure we can have a code. Probably I can directly jump to that part. So this is the on success method, and here we are calling the read step count, read calories, read distance, and read activity time to get the number of steps and calories and all those things. So here we have that particular methods which are just calling the services to get the number of steps, number of calories. So probably we will directly jump to this service. So in the service, we have only one generic method called as get Google Fit data, to which we are passing the activity with which we want to get the data from. And once we have the data, we are just kind of accumulating all those data or adding all those data to get the exact number of steps we have executed or exact number of calories which we have burned, because this happens at a regular interval, because maybe I walked now for 10 minutes and then maybe after half an hour I walked for 10 minutes. So it will calculate or adds up all those data to show. So I will quickly move to this main method, which is get Google Fit data. And to here,
hey, Nanddeep, I'm sorry to kind of jump in, but if you could just sort of do a quick wrap up on what you're doing. We are kind of at the end of the call, so
sure.
That'll give us a chance to close out.
All right. So just give me 1 minute. I will try to finish it up. So almost to the end of the demo. So this is the main method, get Google Fit data, and from here we are calling this Google API, Restful API, and passing the activity scope. And from here we get the entire response in a JSON format, and then we are passing it to React component to show it on a page, and this is how it looks like. All right. So yeah, so that was all for this demo. Yeah. So thank you once again. Yeah.
Awesome, great stuff. Really exciting stuff. It's really cool to see how to interface there with the Google APIs. So always very cool. And it shows a new capability. So pulling in data from different sources and surfacing that in a SharePoint framework is really a lot of what SharePoint framework is all about. Our next SharePoint Framework JavaScript meeting will be March 28th, 2019. That is in 2 weeks. The next general dev meeting will be next Thursday, March 21st. Hope to see you there. I want to thank Vesa for his demos, Laura and Nanddeep for their demos. Great stuff as always. Thank you all very much. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks for attending and look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.